Hello everyone and welcome to this first in a line of A320NX tutorials for use in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So today we're going to be going over the basics pre-flight checklist for the aircraft and just a general overview of what is done before you start with the McDo and startup checklists, etc. So we're going to go through the A320 normal checklist. So we'll jump into the aircraft and get everything set up. So here we are at beautiful Manchester macro simulations scenery. And we'll jump into the cockpit. And I'll also get the camera up for you guys, just so we can get a look at the beautiful scenery that's available. So as you can see, we have the macro simulation scenery and we have the Flybywire livery. Of course, we are doing the tutorial in the Flybywire A32NX mod. And I thought, no, where's better than my home regional airport, Manchester, EGCC. So we're here at stand number 8, and before you start the aircraft, the first thing the pilot would do, usually the second officer, while the pilot is putting the information into the McDo, etc., once they've got everything up, is they would do a pre-flight walk around the aircraft to make sure the condition of the aircraft is okay and that there's no damage, etc. And then obviously we'd jump back into the cockpit and they would start the checklist. So the first thing they would do before they even turn on the brakes, turn on the power, etc., is they would check that the parking brake is set, which is down here. They would make sure that that is on. They would also make sure that the flaps are retracted, they're up, they're not in any positions. They would make sure the spoilers are not set. They would make sure that the cockpit door is normal. They'd lock that before they start the flight. The throttles are at idle, that they're at 0, that there is no thrust applied. That the ground radar and wind shear are in the off positions. Because if you turned the power on and they were on, they would fry the ground crew, the unlucky ground crew. They would make sure that the radio systems are off. Basically, everything in the off positions. The switches are off. Everything is in the off position. They would make sure that the landing gear is down. Because if you set power to the aircraft and the landing gear was up, the wheels would try and retract, and try explaining that to the company you work for. And then obviously we'll go through the different parts of the panel, the screens, etc. So you've got the glare shield here at the top. We'll go into the middle of the aircraft and make us show you this better. So at the top here we've got the glare shield. All these switches along the top control your altitude and your autopilot. So here you have your airspeed. You push it towards, that's managed. The aircraft will manage the speed for you. You pull it towards you, you will be selecting the airspeed you want. Same for the heading. You push it towards the aircraft will manage the heading for you, and pull it towards you, you control the heading. Your autopilot 1 and autopilot 2, at the moment you can't engage both, which is what you would do in real life for a cat-free landing, which is the auto land function. At the moment that's not currently in the simulator. Your auto throttle button is underneath. That will engage automatically when you apply flex or toga thrust upon takeoff. Then you have your altitude selector. You can select it in hundreds or thousands, and that selects your designated altitude. You would select a initial climb altitude that will be given to you when you contact ATC initially. Then you have your vertical speed. You can let the aircraft manage it if you like, but at the moment it's the modeled rate of vertical speed is in the 4,000 plus, and that would be a very uncomfortable departure for passengers. Usually you don't want to go any higher than 2,000 feet a minute, which you can select with your vertical speed dial here, and you can select your designated speed and pull it towards you, and the aircraft will obey those commands if the system is working, which in the simulator you can model faults, but if you don't, it will. So that is your altitude selections. These here are your range, so you can select the range of your map. We'll go into that in further detail when we've got the screens and everything on the go. This one is the mode for your display. You can have it in plan view, that's usually when you're putting in your flight plan. Arc is usually the one you leave it in during your flight, and then you have your various roses for your frequencies. You have your nav, your VOR frequencies, radio frequencies, and you have your ILS for your instrument landing system. You'd select that upon approach and coming into land. Then you've got your flight screens. You'll have your attitude, your indicated airspeed and indicated altitudes on this one, and then you would have your flight plan on this screen here. Then you've got your central ECAM systems. They'll give you information related to your engine temperature, your power output, your percentage of throttle, etc., your engine percentage, and then you'll have your lower ECAM has your company messages, and if you look on the bottom here near the switching panel, you'll have your engine, your bleed information, your electrical information, your hydraulics, your fuel information, and you can select these from down here also. Coming back to the middle panel here, you have your landing gear indicator lights. These will be red when they are in movement, like deployed or up. They'll be all green when they are down. Underneath you have your selection for your speed brakes. So low, medium, high. You don't often need to use max, usually medium or low. Generally low if the runway is of a decent length. Underneath this you'll have your time, your chronometer, and then on the other side of the ECAM, this is your backup attitude indicator, and this will also give you a backup reading of your altitude and speed in case your main screen fails. Below that you have obviously your landing gear here. This is your brakes, and then you'll have your company messages here. You can contact traffic control directly with these little screens here, the little message screens. Then you have your McDo's left and right. Whatever's displayed here will be displayed on your first officer's screen. Also, your switching panels. There are 3 systems that run independently on the Airbus. If one system fails or displays information incorrectly, you can switch to one of the other systems. So norm is usually the one selected, but you have first officers, your captain, and your second officer in charge. In case one of the systems fails, you can switch to the other person's screen. Brightness, as I've said, these are the selections of your information you want to display on your lower ECAM. Your MUGDU, your radio selection, your throttle, auto throttle, and your trim. The Airbus auto trims, which is a great feature. Otherwise, when you see it in flight, you'll see how often it has to adjust. You'd have to do that manually, and that would be a real bollock. Then you have your engine selectors, 1 and 2, on and off switches. You have your engine mode on, start, and crank. You have to make sure that it's in normal before you do your startup. So you would make sure all these things are in the right positions before you start up. Obviously the flaps and spoilers through, trim there, nose left or right. Your parking brake, your centre of gravity. This is to manually lower or retract the landing gear if there is a failure in power to it. You would also check this pre-flight, but it's not modelled at the moment. On this side here, you've got your squawk. This is your identification number that ATC uses to track your position in flight. You would turn it to auto. It's on standby. You would turn it to auto, and you would also turn these to all and TA. And on this side here, you've got your light panel, and then below that you have your radar. You'd usually turn it on, turn your wind shear on, and select W, X, and T, which is weather and turbulence, which would be displayed on your radar. Coming to the top now, we'll just zoom out so you can see the top panel. Pretty self-explanatory, but we will walk ourselves through it. Every part of the panel has its designation, so you've got fire, hydraulics and fuel in this section, electrical systems, your air conditioning units, your packs and your temperature, forward cabin, rear cabin, etc. Your APU bleed, which will bleed hot air from your APU to the engines to start the blades ticking, and also to the cabin. And at the bottom here you have your lighting, that is your exterior lighting. And on the right hand side here you have your interior lighting, APU down the middle, and then you have your flight control systems left and right. These are your secondary flight control systems, and on the left side here you have your primary flight control systems. Flight recorder, you would do a test and such before you fly, obviously, but in the real life you would, but in the flight sim it is not currently modelled. And then you have obviously your oxygen supply for the crew, your cabin calls, your windscreen wipers here. And on the top here you have your ADAs. This is your GPS navigation. You have 3 separate systems, so all need to be in alignment and in agreement with each other. You would start with the left one, then the right one, then the middle one. So that is the general overlay of your cabin, of your flight deck. And now we'll go over the pre-start checklist. So obviously you would check that all of the parking brakes, landing gear, etc. are in the correct positions before you apply power. That's the pre-start checklist. You would just check everything is in the right position, basically all in the off position. So now you want to check your voltage. 25.4, it should be 25.5. Anything below that it would need a charging via ground power for about 20 minutes, half an hour prior to starting it in the cockpit. But once you've checked the batteries are okay, external power on. There we are. So that's aircraft is now connected to ground power, and the ground power is on. Then you would look at the instrument panels, and the general rule of thumb here is that if you see any white lights, they should be turned off. So you've got your batteries 1 and 2, turn them on. Also turn the fuel pumps on, left, then right, then centre. Then you will come down to your lighting panel. You would make sure that the emergency light signs are on, smoking is on, and your seatbelt is on. Turn your nav lights on, your beacon on, and you set your strobe to auto. Auto because at the moment, if you had it on the ground turned on, you would be blinding the ground crew. Auto, all that does is once the pressure is released from the brake wheels, so once you take off and the weight of the aircraft is off the wheels, the lights will detect that obviously, and the strobes will automatically switch on. You would leave your taxi light off until you have had your push and start approval and you're ready to taxi. You would turn your taxi light on to your runway lights on. You would leave your landing lights off until you are at the runway threshold and ready to take off. Flight oxygen. Align your ADAS system. And then centre. Nice little feature there on back. This in real life usually takes about 7 to 10 minutes depending on where you are in the world. On the simulator it's 7 minutes, or you can select what speed you'd like on the do settings. They've added that feature from the Flybywire team, which is terrific. I've currently got it set to fast, so it usually aligns with about 2-3 minutes. It's about half the time that it takes on realism, just because we want to get up and going. It makes it a little bit quicker for you. So then you would request takeoff clearance from, request clearance should I say, request IFR clearance from the controller, whichever that may be, either your in-game ATIS, or if you're on the vaccine network you would request from whichever controller is at the bottom, either clearance delivery or ground. Once you make sure that the doors, etc., that you go through departure briefing, doors closed, and then you would go through your startup checklist. Once you've got that panel done, which we've just done then, all the lights are off, that's fine. So we'll come down here, and now you can see that all the panels are on now. You would just adjust your brightness for all your panels. But this panels here, your first officers are the same as the captains. There we are. See that now it's aligned. You've got your GPS primary come up, and we're currently in arc mode, which is what that one is. So you would go around and you would adjust your brightness settings for all your panels, etc., making sure you can see them all okay. Your ECAM ones here are these two. So zoom in. Your upper and your lower ECAM brightness. Your McDo brightness. Zoom in. It's there. Brightness, dim and bright. So you would just turn that off by clicking the brightness. And down here you have your panel lighting brightness for your auto throttle and your floodlight main panel brightness. So if you come back to the starting position like this and you adjust that one, see how the lighting gets on in the cockpit. It's very bright now. And alternately, if it's dark at night, you can come to the middle panel here and you can set the dome light, which is this one here. You can turn that on. And if you go into night time now, as you'll see, I'll turn it to night. So now you've got a nice little cockpit. Turn the dome light off. Boom. You've now got your panels lighting. And if I switch this the other way, turn them off completely. So the only light you've got in the cockpit is the light from the instruments. In fact, you can even go one further. You can turn all the brightness off, and see how I've got my torch comes on automatically. If we're in the dark, and you can adjust these as well with the overhead indented light, so you can see all the switches, etc. So that's how you adjust your brightness for your cabin. So we'll go back to daytime. There we are. So now that you've adjusted your brightness and everything is on, everything's displaying correctly, and that you've checked that all the switches, the flaps, the spoilers, the throttle, the landing gear are all in the correct position before you start the applied your power, you can then go on to set up the McDo. Before that, you would set up your, you would start your APU. I haven't got any fuel loaded, but the way you would do it, which we'll show you in the next video, after you've started your APU, you would start with your startup checklist. So we've done our pre-start checklist. That's all the making sure everything's in the correct positions, and you started the battery and the pumps and the lights. Then once that's complete, you will go on to your startup checklist, which we will go through in the next video. So I hope you found that information useful on getting the panels and the lights and everything, all the instruments on and displayed correctly. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or message me directly if you are watching this through Facebook. Message the Shaky Gaming page directly. I hope you found all that information useful, and it's giving you a better idea of the layout of the aircraft. And yeah, as I say, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. So thank you for watching this first introduction into the pre-start checklist for the Flybywire A32NX, and I will see you in the next tutorial video, which will go through the startup checklist, starting the APU, checking the thrust levers, fuel pumps, etc., the left engine start, and everything. Before we go through that, I will be doing an in-depth tutorial of the McDo, inputting your flight plan from either SimBrief, inputting your flight plan directly, or using the Microsoft inbuilt flight planner, which for beginners is probably the most efficient and easiest way to do so. But thank you very much for for watching this first video in my tutorial series on the Flybywire 32NX. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.